Hey guys, welcome. This is Sid Patel, your host. Welcome to London Wine Competition. I'm here in London with Beverley. She's been Master of Wine based out of London. And this interview is really going to be for the writers who are writing for consumers. We're going to ask about how to compose a great story and how is her process of writing. Beverley, thanks for joining me here. Why don't you introduce yourself again to our audience on really what are you working on and what has been your career like, please?
Okay, I'm Beverley Blanning. I've been a Master of Wine for the last 20 years.
Wow.
And I'm now involved in the Master of Wine exam, actually. But principally, I'm involved with journalism, writing. So the book that you referred to is Teach Yourself Wine Tasting. That's kind of a consumer-based guide on how to taste wine. And I'm currently preparing a book on wines of the Loire Valley, which will be published by Infinite Ideas. And that's really a book for the interested amateur on everything to do with wines of the Loire Valley, which is a huge region, which is really, I think it's really coming to the fore now. It's quite underrepresented in literature at the moment, so I'm quite excited about that.
Fantastic. I guess a lot of focus and discipline must be needed in writing a book, right? Like you must be having a lot of research to be done.
There's a lot of research, and obviously with the pandemic, everything's been kind of put back a little bit. So now I'm running to try to go everywhere. Do you also have to do
physical tours and meet the winemakers and so
Absolutely,
on? Nice.
Yeah. So Wonderful. I'm spending a lot of time in France at the moment, and that's great. There's no
complaints about that.
No complaints about that, and there's no substitute for actually meeting the people and seeing the places and tasting the wines, obviously.
Super. So really wanted to understand how do you have your writing process? Is there a particular daily word limit you set, or just trying to understand how do you put discipline into writing a piece by piece? And obviously writing a book is a different ball game. We're just talking about basic articles as well. How do you motivate yourself, and how do you go in the no distractions? I just want to understand what's your process like.
Well, that's a big challenge. I think for many writers, it's a big challenge to do that. What's the process? Well, obviously it starts with having an idea. If you're writing an article, having an idea, pitching the idea. I suppose the main process is, okay, why is this interesting? Why is it interesting now? Who is it interesting to? Okay. So just because something's of interest to me doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be of interest to my readers. So
That's a good question. So why is it interesting now?
Why is it interesting right now?
Who is it interested for?
And why am I the person to write it?
Got it.
So those three things, I guess, are the main things to think about. In terms of discipline, I think we could probably all improve. I could certainly improve my own discipline. But what I try to do is to, obviously I have a deadline. I set myself deadlines. I spend a lot of time researching before I start writing, and then I just sit down and...
you try to nail it down in one go?
Well, if I'm doing an article, yeah.
So that's what you try to really just want to
and I try to get my notes on paper as quickly as I can after I've done my research.
So you first write cheat notes, like draft notes, and then you will start with a introduction and so on, right?
I'll have sort of an idea for the broad shape of the article, the things I'm going to cover, the people I've spoken to, the main themes that come out. But it's kind of an evolving thing, really. I'll start off with the idea, and then it will evolve after I've spoken to more people and I have more thoughts about it and read around the subject. So it's an evolving process.
What are the elements, for example, let's say you said people, right? So what are some elements that you really want in a story always, and like people, region, some names, I guess. I don't know, maybe, but you can, there are some 4 or 5 meat, I would say. There should be some real substance to it. Is there something that you must advise that this thing is a good idea to have in a story, otherwise it will be just shallow?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that what makes an article really come to life is the people, because wine is really a people business. And without the personal stories, I think that most articles are quite flat. And so I want to really bring out the personalities of the people who I'm talking about, who make the wine.
Understood.
And that's what I find the most interesting, really. very often the personality of the wine reflects the personality of the person who made it.
Okay.
Which I find quite interesting. But other things that I want to always bring out are a sense of where we've come from, where we're going in the future. So some sort of sense of what's the point of this story? Why am I telling it?
True.
Where's it going? What's likely to happen in the future, and where are we now? So it's a combination. It's kind of a storytelling exercise, really.
True. Do you plan a subject first, or you just write and then you come up with a subject after the story is done?
Well, actually, what I find is that certainly at the moment, I'm doing research. I'm doing more general research, and then certain themes will jump out, which I think, oh, that's really interesting. I'm going to dive into that a little bit more.
Got it.
So it's more things that come to me as I'm doing more general research.
What about picture selection? What's your advice? We're talking about articles here. Let's say, what kind of pictures you see working good with the end consumers? When you're writing a story. What about caption tips?
Well, that's not really I'm more the words person. But what attracts me, and I think what attracts a lot of readers are, well, first of all, again, it's the people, because everybody likes to see who the people are behind the wines that they love. And secondly, I think that there's always an element of escapism when it comes to wine. So there are so many beautiful
scenic pictures.
Beautiful scenic pictures, because so many regions in the world are really beautiful. But
True.
I'm not really the art director, so
no. So you have a graphics team then just takes care of the picture which goes with the story.
Generally, yeah. I mean, sometimes I might, have a great picture, but usually I would leave that to the professionals.
Do you have your own style of, this is article is sort of you write it and you have your own openings. Like your first para is usually the hooks. Where do you start with, make it a punchy thing, or you just know that doesn't matter, just write a summary of what's inside?
Yeah, the beginning can be quite difficult. Sometimes it's good to write the beginning at the end, once you've figured out what's going to go in the middle. I wouldn't say I have a standard way of beginning something, but I try to get people's attention, obviously, right at the beginning. Have you
changed in a way that that a lot of content is being shared on social media now, right? So it's not print anymore. So the beginning becomes super important, the sub-paragraph, because when you share a content, let's say on LinkedIn or something, a pop will come, right? Or a text is being shared. Do you keep that sort of things in mind, or purely you think print is a medium for now?
I tend to leave that to other people. I tend to go with what I'm writing. But it's true that you have to think. I guess there's less just writing a long stream of consciousness. There's more kind of boxes and pulling out key bits and having little sub articles within articles, if you like, because I think people do have shorter attention spans and expect to see little snippets.
Little interest things, words coming up.
Yes.
Have you got any tips on using some words, actual words that just for the consumers of reading the wine really are just catchy and they just are interesting?
Oh, I can't think of anything else.
No problem. But you know what I mean? Something like a tip, which, for example, you may think that this is a good hook for a reader, and this is not a good, they'll get bored. Don't write this. Okay, maybe you can go there. What is not to do?
Well, I think the thing, for me as a consumer, I think I'm always interested in things that are great value. I'm interested in things that are undiscovered.
That's a good point.
So I think that's what people are excited about. Of course, there are always things to say about the classics, and they have new vintages of classic wines and classic regions, but I think what's exciting and interesting is what's new and getting in there before other people.
That's exactly where I was going. How do you consume your own content and find out what's new?
Well, by talking to people.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, reading, going places, talking to people, tasting. That's
and then you think that there's something here, let me just do more research on that.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about this region, for example.
Yeah, definitely. Even, coming to a competition like this, it's great because I don't taste many wines from Moldova or even Greece. I don't taste large flights of those wines on a daily basis. So, I'm always thinking, oh, that could be interesting. Or what about different grape varieties? Or what about unexpected classic varieties in new places, things like that. So I think there are always things to learn, everything you do.
Super. For people who are trying to grow their careers as wine writers, what sort of resources you think there are some good learning resources, some great writers like yourself, do you also write some blogs which they can follow, or any other resources you can say which are good learning materials, or any other writers as well which you think they can follow and learn from?
I think I would just be really wide in your approach to reading. I mean, certainly read the big names and know the big name journalists and the big name blogs and things like that. But I would just read as widely as you can, and don't be afraid to approach people with new ideas, because everyone's looking for ideas.
Got it. On your first book, I think, which said how to select a wine, right? Like how do you pick a good wine for a basic consumer? Especially, let's say, we over here, London Wine Competition judges by value, quality and package, and really that's the consumer that we're going for. So if you were to advise them, how do you pick a good wine on a supermarket or a restaurant? What are your tips for those consumers? How do they pick a good wine? They have no idea, maybe a little bit, but what's your tip on that? What was the theory of that book?
The theory of that book was that, the idea was for it to be a book that anyone could pick up if you knew not the first thing about wine. It's like, where do you start, like you say, if you really know nothing? And I think the first thing is to get out there and taste a few things, and to think about what you like, and not to be too influenced by what other people say. So it's all very well to see a shelf talker which tells you this is a great wine, but to make your own opinion and trust your own judgment, because everybody has different taste buds, everybody has different perceptions, and you've already got to trust yourself on what you like. The second thing is to try to get together with a group of friends to taste different things, and to try to figure out what it is that you like. So the whole book is really about discovering your own taste.
So it shows you the process of what can you do to discover your own palate.
Exactly. So you taste a few things, and then you think, oh well, I really enjoy New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. Well, if you really enjoy New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, you can try Sauvignon Blancs from other places, and then you obviously really enjoy aromatic white wine. So what are other aromatic white wines that you might try? Such as an Albarino from Rias Baixas or something like that. So it's a case of experimenting and having the confidence to experiment, and giving people the tools to be able to do that, sort of the little pointers, if you like. If you think of it as being like a giant roadmap, and you know the rough direction you want to go, and these are the things that you can taste. Okay, all right, so I have a book coming out next year. It'll be June 2023, on the wines of the Loire Valley, and I'm very excited about this book. It's going to be the first book, major book, looking at the wines from this really dynamic, exciting and yet traditional French region for many, many years. And it's actually available for pre-purchase on Amazon. It's called Wines of the Loire Valley, published by Infinite Ideas, and I really hope that it's going to be a reference for the wines from this part of France, which is, like I say, it's really dynamic, exciting place to be at the moment.